December 1500 BCE, the first rays of dawn pierced the desert haze over Napata, illuminating the golden tips of pyramids that seemed to rise like the fingers of gods reaching for the sky. A sudden cry echoed from the riverbank merchants, shouting over the clash of carts and the restless murmur of the Nile heralding news of foreign envoys arriving to witness the wealth and power of Nubia. Shadows danced across sandstone walls, where priests in white linen traced sacred symbols, whispering incantations that rippled through temple corridors, while soldiers adjusted bronze armor under the hot sun, anticipating both diplomacy and confrontation. The scent of incense mingled with the earthy tang of the Nile, carrying both promise and warning as young scribes hurriedly recorded names, trades, and offerings destined to echo through time. In the marketplaces, traders from distant lands haggled over gold, ivory, and exotic spices, their voices weaving a tapestry of ambition, cunning, and survival. Children darted between stalls, wide-eyed at the spectacle of a civilization thriving in complexity and opulence. Kings and queens, draped in regal linens adorned with intricate jewelry, observed from raised terraces, their gazes calculating, knowing that every decision, alliance, and act of devotion could tip the balance of power in a land both blessed and cursed by the Nile. Here, religion and strategy intertwined rituals guiding armies, divine omens shaping trade, and spiritual authority reinforcing earthly dominion. The city pulsed with tension, its heartbeat the rhythm of culture, commerce, and politics, all under the ever-watchful eyes of ancestors immortalized in stone. And as the sun rose higher, casting a shimmering path along the river, the viewer is drawn into this world, a kingdom of astonishing wealth, unyielding ambition, and a culture whose influence reached far beyond its borders. From pyramids to temples, trade routes to military strategy, Nubia was alive with stories that Europe rarely taught, secrets of power, faith, and innovation waiting to be uncovered. Stay with us as we traverse centuries of triumph and struggle, witness kings and priests, warriors and artisans, and explore Africa's forgotten powerhouses, their pyramids, their riches, and their enduring legacy. Don't scroll away. The story of Nubia is not just history. It is a cinematic journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient Africa. Subscribe, comment, and watch closely, for each moment brings you closer to understanding a civilization that shaped worlds unseen, and whose echoes still linger in the whispers of the Nile, along the fertile banks of the Nile. Long before Europe whispered about Africa, the first stones of Kerma rose defiantly against the endless desert. It was 3500 BCE, and the river's seasonal floods nourished fields that fed a burgeoning population. Farmers, their feet sinking into the rich, dark soil, tended crops under a blazing sun, while children ran through dust-laden streets, unaware of the political tensions growing around them. In the palaces, flickering torchlight danced across walls as kings and advisors debated strategy, how to defend against rival tribes and secure trade routes. Their voices echoed, a mix of authority and fear, for Kerma's future hung in delicate balance. Outside, soldiers trained with spears and shields, eyes scanning the horizon for potential threats, hearts pounding with anticipation. Scouts crept silently through the dunes, whispering rumors of approaching enemies, each secret step carrying the weight of life and death. Caravans groaned under the weight of gold, ivory, and exotic goods, connecting Kerma to distant lands while drawing both envy and suspicion. The first mud brick pyramids, crude yet ambitious, began to punctuate the skyline, signaling a civilization that would one day rival Egypt in wealth and power. At night, the scent of cooking fires mingled with the metallic tang of weapons being sharpened. The distant roar of livestock punctuated hushed whispers of intrigue in shadowed corridors. Every decision carried enormous consequences. Alliances could crumble, rebellions could spark, and a single misstep could invite devastation. Yet, within the dust, sweat, and stone, Kerma's heartbeat pulsed with ingenuity, resilience, and ambition. Citizens observed the rise of their kingdom with cautious pride. Merchants counted the fruits of trade, and warriors dreamed of battles yet to come. Each pyramid laid, each caravan route established, and each whispered conversation etched the story of a people determined to thrive in a world that would, for centuries, forget their names. This was the dawn of Nubia, the first chapter in a saga of hidden kingdoms whose ingenuity, courage, and ambition would ripple across Africa, leaving footprints that future generations would struggle to uncover. By 900 BCE, the heart of Nubia had shifted to Napata, a city that pulsed with spiritual authority and political ambition. Massive temples, their sandstone walls engraved with hieroglyphs, rose toward the sky, casting long shadows over bustling streets. At dawn, priests moved silently through corridors heavy with incense, their robes brushing against carved stone as they prepared rituals that would bind the people to the will of their divine kings. Soldiers drilled in the early light, shields clanging, spears flashing, their disciplined movements a testament to centuries of martial tradition. Every citizen understood that kings were not mere rulers. They were intermediaries between gods and mortals, and their decrees carried the weight of destiny itself. Diplomats from Egypt approached cautiously, impressed by Napata's wealth and sophistication, aware that the city's influence extended far beyond the Nile's bend. In candlelit chambers, royal advisors whispered strategies, debated alliances, and weighed threats both internal and foreign. Every word, glance, and gesture could tip the delicate balance of power. The pyramids of Napata, though smaller than their Egyptian counterparts, held a unique elegance and spiritual significance, standing as monuments to ambition and divine authority. Markets thrummed with life as merchants traded gold, beads, and rare goods, their voices mixing with the rhythmic beat of drums and chants from nearby temples. At night, guards patrolled the city walls, listening for the subtle rustle of approaching enemies, while within the palaces, queens and princes navigated a complex web of intrigue and expectation. Festivals illuminated the night with firelight, music, and ceremonial dances. Yet beneath the celebration, tensions simmered, rival factions, secret plots, and the ever-present threat of Egyptian interference loomed like distant storms. Napata thrived as a nexus of religion, governance, and culture, blending awe-inspiring power with human vulnerability. The air was thick with ambition, devotion, and quiet danger, and every stone, every ritual, and every decision echoed the heartbeat of a kingdom that would leave an indelible mark on history. It was here, in Napata's sun-drenched temples and shadowed corridors, that Nubia's divine kings demonstrated brilliance, cunning, and an unshakable claim to a legacy the world would long overlook. By 300 BCE, Meroë had emerged as the crown jewel of Nubia, a city that thrummed with wealth, culture, and unyielding ambition. The sun scorched golden rooftops as merchants from across Africa, the Mediterranean, and distant lands pushed carts overflowing with gold, ivory, and finely crafted wares. The scent of roasting meat and incense mingled with the metallic tang of iron, for Meroë had become Africa's foremost center of iron production, its forges hammering relentlessly as sparks leapt into the dry air. Apprentices and masters toiled side by side, shaping weapons, tools, and monuments that reflected both the skill and the indomitable spirit of the Nubian people. Royal ceremonies dazzled in their opulence. Queens draped in gold and gemstones presided over dances, their movements punctuated by drum beats that seemed to make the very earth tremble. Diplomats from far-off lands approached cautiously, recognizing Meroë's strategic and commercial importance, while spies observed silently, recording the kingdom's power and vulnerabilities. Soldiers marched in perfect formation, archers' eyes sharp, their hands steady, weapons gleaming under the harsh sun, while scouts traced every movement across the surrounding desert, anticipating threats before they appeared. Behind the grandeur, whispers of secret alliances, rivalries, and palace intrigues simmered, weaving tension through candlelit halls. Scholars debated astronomy, religious rituals, and governance, their voices carrying into the cool night air above bustling markets, where merchants haggled and rumors of fortune and danger intertwined. Every stone of Meroë's pyramids, every intricate carving on temple walls, told the story of innovation, resilience, and ambition. Caravans braved desert sands and river routes, connecting Meroë to a vast network of influence, carrying both wealth and clandestine knowledge. And while outsiders often measured Nubia against Egypt's glory, within Meroë, confidence and creativity thrived, proud of achievements that defied the shadow of their northern neighbor. From the clang of hammers in the forges to the whispers of palace intrigue, the city pulsed with life, strategy, and spectacle, leaving a legacy that would endure in the traces of history. Meroë was not merely a city, it was the beating heart of a civilization, determined to claim its place among the world's forgotten powerhouses. In the sun-baked lands of Nubia, military strength was not optional. It was survival. From the banks of the Nile to the sandstone fortresses, armies trained with relentless discipline, their muscles honed by dawn drills and the clash of steel. The rhythm of spears striking shields echoed across the desert as archers practiced precision shots, while cavalry units galloped through dust clouds, hooves pounding like war drums. Generals studied maps etched in sand, plotting campaigns with meticulous care, each line representing the lives of soldiers and the fate of kingdoms. Scouts slipped through night shadows, listening for whispers of rival movements, their silent footsteps carrying secrets that could tip the scales of war. The scent of sweat, leather, and smoke mingled as soldiers sharpened weapons and reinforced fortifications, aware that betrayal could lurk within the palace walls as easily as in the desert beyond. Conflicts with Egyptian forces tested Nubia's mettle, but ingenious strategies hid in waterways, ambushed at dawn, and elite archers positioned on cliffs kept the kingdom fiercely independent. Young warriors prayed silently before battle, hands trembling yet steady, while veterans offered whispered advice, cautioning against recklessness. Citizens watched from rooftops, tension etched into every face, knowing each campaign could bring glory or disaster. Every clash, every skirmish, every maneuver was a testament to a culture where survival demanded intelligence as much as brute strength. Nights were long, filled with the distant echoes of drums, the flicker of watchfires, and the anxiety of families awaiting news. The kingdom's pulse beat strongest in its military, the backbone of Napata, Kerma, and Meroë alike, ensuring that Nubia's sovereignty endured against ambition, envy, and invasion. Even as dust settled on battlefields, the lessons of strategy, loyalty, and courage were etched into the collective memory of the people. Nubian military might was more than a display of force. It was the lifeblood of a civilization, a precise blend of courage, cunning, and resilience. And as the sun dipped behind the horizon, warriors returned to the city, armor dented, hearts racing, yet proud of silent, unyielding promise that Nubia would survive, defend, and rise again, leaving the world to remember only fragments of its formidable legacy. In the bustling cities of Nubia, art and culture were as vital as the Nile that sustained the land. By Meroë and Napata, the streets hummed with artisans hammering metal, carving intricate jewelry and weaving fabrics dyed with vibrant colors drawn from the earth. Every stroke of a chisel, every delicate brush of pigment on a fresco told stories of gods, kings, and the people who revered them. Temples echoed with chants and the soft rhythm of drums, while priests guided citizens through sacred rituals, their gestures precise, their voices weaving a tapestry of devotion and mystery. Sculptors shaped statues of kings and queens, capturing not just physical likenesses, but the essence of divine authority, eyes carved to gleam with a spiritual fire. The scent of incense drifted through corridors, mingling with the metallic tang of bronze and iron, while candlelight flickered across murals depicting battles, ceremonies, and the prosperity of the kingdom. Musicians tuned lyres and flutes, their notes rising over the marketplace's clamor, infusing daily life with melody and reverence. In grand halls, scribes meticulously inscribed hieroglyphs onto papyrus, chronicling trade, laws, and lineage knowledge meant to endure through centuries. Children watched wide-eyed as dancers spun in ceremonial robes, their movements echoing the eternal rhythm of the Nile, teaching the next generation the stories, traditions, and pride of Nubia, even in the most humble workshops. The devotion to craft reflected the kingdom's identity, resilience, sophistication, and creativity intertwined with every object, song, and architectural marvel. Visitors from distant lands marveled at the skill and innovation, noting pyramids with unique designs, temples carved from sandstone, and intricate jewelry unmatched anywhere else in Africa. Every piece of art was a declaration. Nubia was not merely a neighbor of Egypt. It was a civilization with its own voice, its own elegance, its own story. And as dusk fell, shadows danced over the city, lanterns flickered to life, and the whispers of artisans, musicians, and priests lingered in the warm night air, silent, enduring testament to a cultural and artistic legacy that would outlast empires, wars, and the sands of time, leaving echoes that future generations would struggle to uncover and honor. From the bustling banks of the Nile to the sun-scorched deserts beyond, Nubia's wealth flowed along the veins of trade routes that stitched together an empire of influence. Caravans creaked under the weight of gold, ivory, ebony, and exotic spices, their wheels grinding against sandy paths while camels plodded steadily, guided by seasoned merchants who knew every curve of the desert and every bend of the river. The aroma of rare goods resins, perfumes, and rich metals mingled with the dust-laden air, telling tales of distant lands and relentless ambition. Merchants whispered in shadowed corners, plotting deals that could tip the balance of power, while rival traders observed cautiously, eyes narrowed, fingers twitching near hidden daggers. At river ports, Nile barges groaned with treasure, sailors shouting orders over the creak of ropes and the lapping of water, each boat a lifeline connecting Meroë and Napata to the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Kings and queens monitored the flow, aware that wealth was not merely luxury, it was the lifeblood of armies, the foundation of temples, and the symbol of divine favor. Every trade mission carried risk, sandstorms that could swallow caravans, raiders lurking beyond dunes, and political intrigue that could turn allies into enemies overnight. Yet, with every ounce of gold transported and every exotic commodity exchanged, Nubia's influence spread, reaching courts in Egypt, the Levant, and beyond. The markets of Napata and Meroë pulsed with life voices bargaining, children running through the crowded stalls, and artisans crafting goods destined for kings and foreign dignitaries. Wealth flowed not just in coins and goods, but in knowledge, culture, and innovation, creating a kingdom where prosperity was inseparable from strategy and vision. The pyramids, temples, and palaces of Nubia were silent witnesses to the riches carried along these routes, monuments funded by the sweat, courage, and enterprise of generations. As the sun set behind the distant dunes, traders counted treasures by firelight, strategists calculated influence, and the kingdom's heartbeat grew ever stronger, a network of commerce, power, and ambition that secured Nubia's place as one of Africa's greatest civilizations, remembered in fragments but never forgotten by those who trace the trails of history. In the temples of Napata and Meroë, the air was thick with incense, the scent curling around stone columns and drifting over sun-drenched courtyards, carrying the prayers of a people who lived in constant communion with the divine. Nubian kings were not merely rulers. They were intermediaries between gods and mortals, chosen to wield spiritual authority as decisively as their armies wielded spears. Priests, cloaked in white linen and adorned with gold, performed intricate rituals at dawn, their chants echoing through halls, carrying both warning and blessing. Citizens approached the sacred precincts with reverence, their hearts pounding, aware that divine favor could bring prosperity, while neglect or sacrilege could summon ruin. Pyramids and temples were adorned with carvings depicting gods, ancestors, and kings, each stroke a testament to a civilization that understood power not only in conquest, but in belief, ritual, and devotion. Festivals illuminated the city with firelight, music, and dance, but beneath the celebration simmered intrigue. Advisors whispered secret interpretations of omens, priests consulted the heavens for guidance, and rival factions sought influence through subtle manipulations of ritual and ceremony. Oracles and diviners guided military campaigns, their readings shaping strategies that could turn the tide of war before swords were drawn. Even everyday life was infused with spiritual weight. Merchants offered coins at shrines before departing on trade missions. Farmers invoked gods for bountiful harvests, and warriors prayed for strength and protection before battles that could decide the fate of kingdoms. Nightfall brought an ethereal calm, punctuated by the soft glow of torches along temple steps, where the king's shadow stretched long and commanding, merging with the divine presence that suffused the land. The power of belief shaped laws, inspired artistry, and underpinned society itself, creating a kingdom where devotion was as essential as strategy and spiritual authority reinforced earthly dominion. Nubia's legacy of faith, ritual, and sacred kingship left an indelible mark, a civilization whose spiritual heartbeat resonated across centuries, whispering the truth of a people who understood that survival, prosperity, and greatness were inseparable from their gods. By the first centuries BCE, the golden pulse of Nubia began to waver. The cities of Napata and Meroë, once vibrant with wealth, culture, and unyielding ambition, now faced mounting pressures that threatened to unravel centuries of dominance. The desert wains carried whispers of foreign armies, Romans probing southern borders, Egyptians asserting influence, and traders seeking to divert the flow of gold and ivory. Internally, succession disputes fractured royal households, with rival princes maneuvering through shadowed corridors, each step a calculated risk, every glance a potential threat. The pyramids and temples that once towered as symbols of divine authority now stood as silent witnesses to a kingdom's vulnerability, their carved hieroglyphs catching the long shadows of fading power. Markets still thrummed, but the merchants' voices bore anxiety, aware that once reliable trade routes grew perilous with bandit raids and shifting political alliances. Droughts struck the Nile, reducing harvests and igniting tensions among farmers whose labor had sustained the kingdom for generations. The iron forges that had echoed through Meroë now worked with less vigor, flames flickering lower, the rhythmic clang of hammers less assured. Warriors trained tirelessly, yet morale wavered as threats multiplied from within and without, and even the most loyal generals whispered doubts of impending loss. Religion and ritual, once the spine of society, became battlegrounds of influence, priests aligning with factions in subtle struggles that threatened unity. At night, the city walls of Meroë cast long, eerie shadows, guards patrolling under a pale moon, aware that decline often came as quietly as the desert sands. Yet, in the heart of challenge, Nubians demonstrated resilience, adapting strategies, forging temporary alliances, and preserving knowledge and culture in secret archives and hidden sanctuaries. Though empires would eventually overshadow Nubia, the struggles of this era, political, environmental, and spiritual, revealed the depth of character and ingenuity that had long defined the kingdom. The decline was not sudden. It was a complex, human, and cinematic unfolding of circumstance, ambition, and fate, leaving lessons embedded in stone, sand, and memory for all who sought to understand the remarkable saga of Africa's forgotten powerhouses. Long after the sun had set on Napata and Meroë, the echoes of Nubia's greatness refused to fade. Across the sands and along the Nile, the pyramids, temples, and fortresses stood as silent sentinels, monuments to a civilization that had thrived through wealth, culture, and indomitable spirit. Scholars centuries later would uncover artifacts, hieroglyphs, and iron tools, piecing together a story of ingenuity, resilience, and influence that rivaled even Egypt's famed grandeur. Nubia's kings and queens, once shrouded in mystery, inspired tales of diplomacy, strategic brilliance, and spiritual authority, their images immortalized in statues that seemed to watch over the land with eternal vigilance. The trade networks, once alive with caravans of gold, ivory, and exotic wares, had seeded prosperity far beyond the kingdom's borders, influencing markets and cultures across Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea. Art, music, and religious practices endured in echoes, rituals whispered in distant temples, songs carried in oral traditions, and symbols carved into new monuments, a testament to a people whose creativity knew no bounds. The military tactics honed in deserts and along riverbanks informed strategies observed by neighbors and successors alike, while Nubia's spiritual philosophies shaped cultural and religious thought across regions. Even today, historians and archaeologists marvel at the precision of Nubian pyramids, the intricacy of jewelry, and the intelligence embedded in administrative records, realizing that the kingdom's impact was both tangible and intangible. In classrooms, museums, and hidden archives, Nubia teaches resilience against adversity, innovation amidst constraint, and the power of culture to endure beyond political decline. As the Nile continues its eternal journey, it carries the legacy of Meroë and Napata, whispering of a civilization that dared to rise, flourish, and influence the world in ways often overlooked. Nubia's story is a reminder that history is not solely defined by conquerors and empires that dominate textbooks. It is also written by those who thrive in the shadows. leaving an indelible mark on civilization itself. The kingdom may have faded from the map, but its spirit, ingenuity, and legacy pulsed through the ages, challenging the world to remember Africa's forgotten powerhouses with awe, respect, and wonder. As the sun dips below the distant horizon, casting long, burning shadows across the pyramids of Meroë and the sandstone temples of Napata, the story of Nubia crystallizes into a haunting, unforgettable truth. Greatness is not measured solely by empire or conquest, but by the legacy left in culture, courage, and innovation. Generations of kings and queens, warriors, artisans, and priests once walked these lands, their lives intertwined with the pulse of the Nile and the rhythm of trade, war, and faith. Every carved hieroglyph, every pyramid rising defiantly from the desert, whispers tales of resilience, intellect, and vision that defied the sands of time. The golden wealth of Nubia flowed through trade routes that touched distant lands, influencing civilizations far beyond its borders, while its armies safeguarded sovereignty with unparalleled discipline, skill, and strategy. Even as droughts, political strife, and external pressures eroded the kingdom's dominance, the spirit of Nubia endured, preserved in art, music, ritual, and the memory of those who chronicled its stories. Modern historians, archaeologists, and explorers uncover fragments of this grandeur, piecing together the empire's brilliance and its profound impact on African and world history. The Nile continues its eternal journey, mirroring the flow of Nubian influence. Subtle yet unstoppable, shaping lands, cultures, and minds. As viewers, we are left standing at the edge of history, witnessing the rise and fall of a civilization that, though often forgotten in mainstream narratives, carved its indelible mark upon the world. Nubia teaches us that power lies not only in conquest, but in culture, knowledge, and resilience. That even when empires fade from maps, their spirit can echo through millennia. And in that echo, we find both awe and a chilling reminder. History is filled with voices, victories, and legacies waiting to be rediscovered. Let this final reflection linger. The pyramids, the temples, the people, and the stories of Nubia are not lost. They are alive in the shadows, in the whispers of the Nile, and in the heartbeats of all who dare to uncover Africa's forgotten powerhouses. Remember, reflect, and let the saga of Nubia ignite your curiosity. For the past is never truly gone, and its lessons are more urgent, more powerful, and more cinematic than any scroll-stopping tale could ever capture.